Hey there, Mantaray79 here, and I'm back with another deck profile video for the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game. In today's video, the deck profile I'm going to be doing one for is D standard formats, Dragon Empires, Dragonic Overlord the End with Effesteo Dragon. Alrighty then, let's get started. First off, the right deck. And now for the right deck. For the cards in this right deck, we have Grade 0, Lizard Runner Undu, Grade 1, Embodiment of Armor Bar, Grade 2, Dragonite Nehalem, and Grade 3, Dragonic Overlord. The Grade 0 starting unit, Lizard Runner Undu. Like any other starting unit in the D standard format, he features only one skill. When rated on top of, if you're the second to go to Grade 1, you get to draw a card. The Grade 1, Embodiment of Armor Bar. His skills are, the first skill, as a Vanguard, when rated on top of by Dragonite Nehalem, by paying a counterblast of 1. If the cost has been paid, you may search your deck for any Grade 1 unit and add it to your hand. So ideally, this first skill will allow you to add maybe a Perfect Guard or any other Grade 1 that's mainly used for your deck's later game strategy. The Grade 2, Dragonite Nehalem. His skills are, the first skill, when ridden on top of by an Overlord, you may move Nehalem from your soul to the rear guard. So if this first skill, as long as you manage to ride an Overlord like Dragonic Overlord or Dragonic Overlord the End on top of Nehalem, you'll be able to secure yourself a rear guard Nehalem whose second skill will support your Vanguard Overlord later in the game. The Grade 3, Dragonic Overlord. His skills are, the first skill, as a Vanguard or a rear guard, whenever it attacks an opponent's rear guard, the attack cannot be blocked by your opponent with any cards in their hand. So with this first skill, you can more or less have a almost absolute attack on any opponent's rear guard, since your opponent you cannot use any cards from their hand to guard with. And the second skill of Dragonic Overlord, as a Vanguard, once per turn, after this unit's attack hits, you may counterblast 1 and discard a card from your hand. If the cost has been paid, you may restand your Vanguard Overlord with the additional cost of reducing your Vanguard's drive check by 1. So with the second skill, it's more or less a standard restanding ability for the Dragonic Overlord series. And with that, we've just about covered the deck's right deck. Next, let's get on to the main deck. And now for the Grade 1 lineup. For the Grade 1s in this deck, we have 2 Effesteo Dragons, 3 Stealth Dragon Togachirashi, and 4 Twin Buckler Dragons. The Grade 1 Effesteo Dragon, one of the main cards of this deck build. His skill is, as a rear guard, after the battle this unit boosted a Vanguard. If the boosted Vanguard has stood up, then you may pay a Soul Blast of 2. If the cost has been paid, you may then retire one of your opponent's front row rear guards, and then choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn. So for this Grade 1, it's more or less a support card for Vanguards that restand after attacking, like the Dragonic Overlords. As long as you can pay the 2 Soul Blast cost each time, you can not only wipe out your opponent's rear guards, you could also give your restood Vanguard a little extra power to attack with later in the second attack, making this a good card to have for the Overlord series in the D standard format. The Grade 1, Stealth Dragon, Togachirashi. His skill is, during your turn, when discarded from your hand, instead of being sent to the drop zone, Togachirashi can then instead be sent to your soul. So with this card, it's a good way to pay for either your right deck costs, or maybe even for cards that require you to discard cards from your hand to activate skills like the Dragonic Overlord series. With Togachirashi as the hand cost, you can more or less secure an additional soul charge every time you discard this card from your hand for right deck costs or restanding costs, making it a good way to restock your soul for maybe cards that require you to Soul Blast, like the Effesteo Dragon I mentioned earlier. The Great One, Sentinel, Perfect Guard, Twin Buckler Dragon. Like any other Perfect Guard in the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game, it features the same skill and activation and requirements. When used to guard with, you may discard one card from your hand. If you've done so, you may block one enemy attack, but it also features an additional ability of this guard skill. When used to guard with, if you have less than 2 cards in your hand, then you don't have to pay any cost to Perfect Guard. So with Twin Buckler Dragon, in the possible event that you choose to guard with him and you have maybe 1 card or less in your hand during the guarding, you will not have to pay the usual hand cost to do a Perfect Guard, making Twin Buckler Dragon more or less a great defense, either with or without the hand cost to discard with. And with that, we just about covered the deck's Grade 1 lineup. Next, let's get on to the Grade 2 lineup. And now for the Grade 2 lineup. For the Grade 2s in this deck, we have 4 Burning Horn Dragons, 3 Berserk Dragons, 2 Dragonite Nehalems, 2 Perfect Burner Dragons, and 3 Steel Bullet Duststorm Ethans. The Grade 2 Burning Horn Dragon, its skills are: the first skill, when called onto the rearguard circle, you may counterblast 1. If the cost has been paid, you may check the top 7 cards of your deck for an Overlord and add it to your hand. And in the event that you fail to add any said Overlords to your hand by this unit's first skill, you may countercharge 1. So with this first skill, it's a good way to secure additional Dragonic Overlords in your hand to ride with or to use for any other purposes you wish to have an additional Overlord in your hand for. And the best part about this first skill is refundable, since in the event that you fail to add any new cards to your hand by this first skill, you can countercharge 1, making it almost no cost for this first skill. And the second skill of Burning Horn Dragon, as a rearguard, whenever your Vanguard Overlord attacks, Burning Horn gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn. So with this second skill, it can also make Burning Horn a good front row attacker for the Dragonic Overlord series, which specializes in restanding and attacking multiple times your Vanguard. In this deck build, it's possible for Burning Horn Dragon to serve as either a 15,000 point attacker or 20,000 point attacker from your front row. The Grade 2 Berserk Dragon, its skill is: as a rearguard, whenever it attacks, if your Vanguard is an Overlord, then during that battle, Berserk Dragon gets plus 5,000 power and a skill. The skill is: by counterblasting 1, you can retire one of your opponent's Grade 2 or less rearguards. So with this skill, Berserk Dragon serves as a 15,000 point attacker and a rearguard retirer for your Dragonic Overlord decks. The Grade 2 Dragonite Nehalem, its skill is: the second skill, as a rearguard, once per turn, if your Vanguard is an Overlord, you may Soul Blast 1. If the cost has been paid during that turn, then the Nehalem who paid for this skill and your Vanguard Dragonic Overlord get plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn. So with this second skill, it's a good way to add a little extra power to your Vanguard Overlord and to make Nehalem a 15,000 power attacker from the front row. And the best part about this unit's skill, though on its own, it's not restackable. If you have managed to secure multiple copies of Nehalem in the rearguard, it's possible to at least stack the extra power to your Vanguard, as long as you're willing to pay for the extra Soul Blast 1 for each Nehalem you play on the rearguard, and you wish to add more power to your Vanguard Overlord. The Grade 2 Perfect Burner Dragon, its skill is: when discarded from your hand during your battle phase, you may instead move Perfect Burner to your Vanguard Soul, and then 1 unit on your field gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn. So it's more or less like the Grade 1 Stealth Dragon Tokichirashi. If discarded from your hand during your battle phase, instead of being sent to the drop zone, it goes to the Soul, more or less stacking your Vanguard Soul and giving a little extra power to your Vanguard with the plus 5,000 power from this unit's skill, making it more or less a good Vanguard amplifier and a Soul restacker. The Grade 2 Steel Blood Duststorm Ethan, its skill is: as a rearguard, whenever your Vanguard's attack hits, you may retreat Ethan from your rearguard. If you've done so, you may draw 1 card and countercharge 1. So this unit skill is more or less a good way to more or less refund your counterblast for later unit skills, and also restock your hand of a little extra cards by letting it draw one each time you activate this unit skill. So making a good support card for Overlords, since you need the extra counterblast, and Overlords specialize in multiple attacks, increasing the chances of this unit's skill activating. And with that, we just about covered the deck's Grade 2 lineup. Next, let's get on to the Grade 3 lineup. And now for the Grade 3 lineup. For the Grade 3s in this deck, we have 3. Dragonic Overlord the Ends, and 3. Penetrate Dragon, Tribash. The Grade 3, Dragonic Overlord the End, one of the main Grade 3s to ride in this deck. His skills are, the first skill is a Vanguard. During your turn, if Dragonic Overlord is in your soul, then Dragonic Overlord the End gates plus 5,000 power, and his drive check cannot be reduced during that turn. And the second skill of Dragonic Overlord the End, as a Vanguard, once per turn, after attacking, by counterblasting one and discarding 2 cards from your hand. If this cost has been paid, you may restand your Vanguard at the additional cost of reducing your Vanguard's drive check by 1. But with this first skill that I already mentioned before, as long as you've got an Overlord in the End soul, the -1 drive check after restanding won't be counted. So with this, you'll be able to have 2 Vanguard attacks with twin drive each time. And the Grade 3, Penetrate Dragon, Tribash, his skill is, as a rear guard, whenever your Vanguards attacks, and if your opponent has 2 or less rear guards on their field, you may move Tribash into your soul. If you've done so, then during that battle, your Vanguard gets +1 critical. So with Tribash, he's a good way to not only restock your soul, but also a good way to give your attacking Vanguard an extra critical to have a little more pressure, or possibly finish the game on that move. As long as you've managed to clear out your opponent's rear guards beforehand, making Tribash a good card for, like I said before, restocking your Vanguard soul, or to increase your damage output by 1 critical. And with that, we've just about covered the deck's Grade 3 lineup. Next, let's get on to the trigger lineup. And now for the trigger lineup. For the triggers in this deck, we have 1. Dragon Deity of Resurgence, Dragvita, over trigger. 4. Burning Flail Dragons, critical triggers. 3. Conduct Spark Dragons, critical triggers. 4. Flare Veil Dragons, draw triggers. 2. Cure Flare Draco Kids, heal triggers. And 2. Stealth Fiend, Amaviras, heal triggers. The Grade 0, over trigger, Dragon Deity of Resurgence, Dragvita, the over trigger for the Dragon Empire nation. Like any other over trigger, it features the same activation. When revealed during a drive check or a damage check, you can then give one of the units on your field 100 million power, and then by removing from play your over trigger, you can draw a card. But for Dragvita, he features an additional ability. When revealed during your drive check, you may restand one of your Vanguards, which is, so this second ability, it's more or less a good way to get your Vanguard an additional attack, which goes well with the Dragonic Overlord series, which specialize in multiple attacks in from your Vanguard. The Grade 0, critical trigger, Burning Flail Dragon. His skill is, as a rear guard, after boosting, you may move Burning Flail from your rear guard to your soul. If you've done so, you may choose 1 unit on your field, and it gets plus 2,000 power till the end of the turn. So with Burning Flail Dragon, it's a good way to restock your soul, and also to give one of your remaining units on your field a little extra power. The Grade 0, draw trigger, Flare Veil Dragon. His skill is, when used to guard with, if your Vanguard is Grade 3, then during the guard, Flare Veil Dragon gets plus 5,000 shield. So as long as you've managed to ride to Grade 3 before guarding this card, Flare Veil can then serve as a 10,000 point shield from your hand. The Grade 0, Heal Trigger, Cure Flare Draco Kit. His skill is, when used to guard against an attack of critical 2 or more, and if the attacking unit's critical was raised by any other means besides trigger effects or base critical, then during the guard, Cure Flare Draco Kit gets plus 15,000 shield till the end of the battle. So, more or less, as long as you've used it to guard against an opponent who's risen their attacking unit's critical either by skill or card effect, as long as it's not by trigger effect, or if their critical was not 2 as a base, then Cure Flare Draco Kit can become a 25,000 point shield on its own as long as the requirements has been filled. The Grade 0, Heal Trigger, Stealth Fiend, Amavira. Her skill is, when used to guard against an opponent's attack that has attacked twice or more, she gets plus 15,000 shield till the end of turn. So, for Amavir, when you use to guard against an opponent's unit that has attacked twice or more during that turn, she becomes a 25,000 point shield, making her a good defense against opponents' decks that specialize in restanding and attacking multiple times, like maybe Bastion or Bruce or fellow Overlord users, for example, making her a good way to fight against opponents that rush you by restanding and attacking multiple times. And with that, we've just about covered the deck's trigger lineup. For the triggers in this deck, we have 1 over trigger, 7 critical triggers, 4 draw triggers, and 4 heal triggers. And with that, we've just about covered all the cards in the main deck. And now I've just about pretty much covered this deck's deck build and the card effects. Next, let's get on to the main playstyle of this deck. So for this deck build, the main playstyle I use is, first you just normally ride the right deck chain of the cards inside, from Undo to Bar to Nehalem to Overlord. Then on your next turn, try to cross-ride to the Dragonic Overlord the end. And then on your front row, try to secure either these cards, Burning Horn Dragon, Berserk Dragon, or possibly Tribash. And in the back row, try to get the main great one of this deck, Effesteo Dragon here in the center column behind your Vanguard. And in your hand, try to secure at least either a Tokichirashi or Effesteo Dragon. So in the event that you attack with your Vanguard and use its restanding ability by discarding cards in your hand, try to have Tokichirashi or Preferred Burner Dragon discarded for the Dragonic Overlord or Dragonic Overlord the end's restanding cost, thus allowing them to be moved to your soul instead of discarded to the drop zone. And then later when your Vanguard restands, you can then use Effesteo Dragon's skill to Soul Blast set cards to not only clear out your opponent's front row rear guards, but to give your Vanguard a little extra power, which also works well with Tribash, since with Effesteo Dragon's rearguard retiring skill increases your chances of at least using Tribash's +1 critical skill to aid your Vanguard Dragonic Overlord's second attack, since you can use the extra +1 critical to increase the chances of the second attack finishing your opponent's Vanguard. And having strong front row attackers like the Burning Horn Dragon or Berserk Dragon or Tribash. So that's pretty much it. You basically play a standard restanding and multiple attack strategy from your Vanguard Dragonic Overlord. Make sure you secure Effesteo Dragon in the center column behind your Vanguard. Use skills like Effesteo Dragon and Berserk Dragon to clear out your opponent's rear guards, so you can more or less use Tribash's +1 critical skill to increase your Vanguard's critical to help you finish off your opponent much faster and more securely. So, like I said before, attack multiple times to your Vanguard, clear out rear guards, and potentially plus critical. That's the main strategy of this deck. And with that, I've just about pretty much covered the deck's main deck build, the card effects, and the main playstyle meant to be used with this deck. So first off, I want to say thank you to the viewers for watching today's video and to Please stay tuned for more videos I plan to upload again in the near future. I also hope you all show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to my videos and channel. And with that, I say goodbye and see you all soon.